Every character, location, or experience you've read about in my crime fiction novels holds a piece of reality. I'm Helen Taylor. Welcome to the story behind my stories, the video podcast where crime fiction meets my authentic experience. Here, we delve into the real-life inspirations and intimate stories that shaped my novels. Discover how my everyday encounters, adventures, and travels translate into tales as gripping as they are genuine. The story behind my stories goes behind the words on the page to reveal the backstory that inspires my writing. Hit follow or subscribe and ensure you're part of this journey. Hi, welcome to episode 3 of the story behind Aloha, Goodbye. So last week we talked about the 4 cruises that I've been on and what experience from particularly the Canaries cruise I used in the start of Aloha, Goodbye. So today I'm going to talk about dining on a cruise and the other things that I've taken from my experiences on a cruise. So when I went with Lauren, we didn't have the drinks package and I didn't take advantage of many of the things that happened in the evenings, as we were very much focused during the day on activities, lei making and line dance class. I loved running around the deck. Movies under the stars, which is a great thing, where you can lay on deck and sunbathe and be watching a movie. All PG and all really big movies like The Greatest Showman and things like that. And then you can watch a movie in the evenings on deck with popcorn and a little blanket, which was great. I loved doing that. And Lauren was usually off with her friends doing teenage things. But we came together every day to eat. And we would eat in the restaurant. And there was loads of places to eat on a cruise ship. You've got cafes and coffee bars. You've got the on the Hawaiian one, well, both of the ones out of LA actually, and also on the Canaries one. So it's probably a princess thing. There is a steakhouse sort of restaurant, which is in addition to, because all your food is included in the cost of the cruise. And then there was an Italian restaurant, which again was an additional cost. But then there was a pizza place in the central square, if you like, on deck 7, 6, where there were various events. Went on one year when we were doing it was over Easter, and there was an Easter egg hunt in that area, and there was regularly bands playing there, but there was cafes around there and bars. And then on the top deck, which is the deck that both the cruises I did with Lauren and the cruise I did with Ben, I've always had our cabin on, because I really like being on that open deck. And when you walked out onto the open deck with the pool, there's a bar and then there's 2 sort of takeaway fast food outlets either side of the bar that's in the middle on the deck. And one is the Salty Dog, which is all sort of nachos and hot dogs, burgers, and the other one is called Slice, and that is pizza. And you can just go up and have a slice of pizza whenever you feel like it, which Lauren loves. And also on that deck, on the other side of the pool, stretching all the way across the ship and maybe a third of the ship, is the self-serve buffet restaurant. So you can go there any time of the day or night and have breakfast, have lunch, have dinner, have snacks. There's a whole pastry section, and I do describe it in Aloha Goodbye, but you've got tables down both sides with the windows out to the ocean, and then the middle bit has sort of aisles running in between sections, and that's where all the food is for you to serve yourself. And then you have waiters and waitresses bringing you drinks. In the mornings, coffee, tea, juices, and lunchtime, and the evening. On the two American cruises, they did drinks from the bar, they'd go and get them for you. But on the Canaries cruise, they did have a mini bar with wine and beers and ciders and stuff at the end of one of those middle sections that you could go up and get your drinks. Then at the bottom of the ship, on decks 5 and 6, are the 3 dining restaurants where it's table service and bar service too. And there you can book that through the app, and all 3 restaurants serve the same menu, and you could have 5 courses or you could have 1 course. It's entirely up to you. I have never partaken of eating in those restaurants for breakfast or lunch, but it was the one time that me and Lauren came together to eat on the American cruises, and Ben and I would meet up with my sister and her husband to have dinner together, even though we'd seen each other through the day, in the evening there too. Now, when you're booking in those restaurants, you can book the same time every day or vary the times. We never booked to eat in those restaurants on the days that we went ashore, so that we didn't have to get back for it. And then we'd eat in the buffet restaurant or ashore, depending on what time the ship was leaving. But you can book to have a table just for you, like a table for 2, or you can book to join a table with people you don't know. And that was the thing that Lauren and I really enjoyed on both of our cruises, was booking to sit on a table of 8, and then you never knew who you would be sitting with, and you got to know other people, which was great. We met some real characters from all sorts of different places. On the Hawaiian cruise, the majority were American. On the Panama Canal cruise, a lot of different nationalities. And we met people from all over, and some great people. We sat one day with 2 women who I do base some characters in Aloha Goodbye on. Not their characters, but where they were from and their history together. Who happened to be in the cabin next to us as well. So that was great. And we did find on both of the cruises with me and Lauren that we would regularly rotate with other people that we had sat with before, which was great because then as through the cruise you got to check in on what they'd been doing, and I can imagine if you're sat with people that you don't get on with or you don't enjoy, then that might be a bit tedious, and maybe people have had that experience before and that's why they choose the table just for them. We were on the cruise once and Lauren had the opportunity to go and do cake making and decorating in the galley, and so she made a cake and they brought that out for our table of 8 that night, and everybody ate that. But you do get to meet different people, and it was the perfect thing to use in Aloha Goodbye for Goodwin and Jane to sit with a different set of people every night, and it allowed me to bring suspects in or bit characters or throw suspicion elsewhere, because it is very easy, you may not think it, but it is very easy on a cruise ship to actually not interact with anybody. You can just be on your own, doing your own thing the whole time and not interact with anyone. So it was really nice to come together at dinner and interact with other people and meet other people. And on the Panama Canal one, we met a lovely couple who we ended up doing an excursion with. When we were on the Canaries one, we'd go and play table tennis every day at 12 o'clock, little table tennis tournament, and then we would see the people from the table tennis around the ship at other times, and it's nice just having those people that you can acknowledge. I have that at home, walking the dog, but obviously don't have the dog with me on the cruise, and so I don't have that interaction where you say hello to people that you see regularly. So it is nice to come together and have that. I have to give a shout out to Princess now about the food. I mean, apart from the food was really good all the time, what they did for me, being a celiac and gluten-free, was they would give me the menu for the next day, and I would say what I wanted, and then they would just make sure that it was gluten-free. So I could eat anything off of the menu, they would just make it gluten-free for me, which was awesome, because I don't generally get that in the majority of land-based restaurants. And again, I never picked a dessert, but the chef would have made a special dessert every day, which was also available in the buffet restaurant upstairs. But I used that experience of eating in those dining rooms in Aloha Goodbye to give the opportunity for Goodwin to meet other characters and then be able to understand the suspicions and for him to pick up clues. And so if you read Aloha Goodbye, you will get the experience of eating in those restaurants and how you meet the people. The victim is found on deck, where we have I've mentioned the movies Under the Stars, etc. Now, the other big thing that I talk about in Aloha Goodbye, that is from my experience again, is the C keys, CEA keys, contactless electronic access. And what I was trying to come up with this, it is based loosely on Princess Cruises' medallions. And it's basically an electronic device that is like a card for hotels where you swipe it to get into your hotel room. You can do that with the C key. You also use that for ordering your drinks and for paying for anything that you have to pay for. And you can also get it for using it to find your shipmates and see where people are. And I use that very much in Aloha Goodbye by Goodwin and the crew in order to help solve the crimes, or at least help them out. Other things, from my experience of cruising, not, as I've said, not necessarily on the cruise to Hawaii, but when I was with Ben on the Canaries cruise, then we had the drinks package, and we also went to the casino. And I one of the women that we met on the Hawaiian cruise spent a lot of time in the casino, and I'd never gone in there. And actually, the one thing that I dislike about the casino is that you can smoke in there, and it just smells of smoke. But if you can get past that, and the one in the Canaries, you can only smoke in one end of it. You couldn't smoke on the tables. So we did go to the tables and experience playing roulette on the ship. And I do use that experience in Aloha Goodbye, where one of the fairly main characters does spend a lot of time in the casino. So let me just read you an extract there. So, for the dining, on the second night at sea, the dining room on the luxurious Pearl of the Pacific buzzed with conversation and laughter as it headed towards the serene shores of Hawaii. At another round table, this time near the grand window tonight, 6 more individuals were gathered again at a table with Goodwin and Jane, each with their own unique stories and secrets. So that's what I did. I used that in order to introduce Goodwin to suspects, bit players, victims, all sorts throughout the book. And some of the people are based on combinations of people that I had dinner with on any of my cruises, and some of them are completely made up, or people that I'd seen elsewhere on the ship at other times on the different cruises that I went on, in order to give that roundedness of the characters and sometimes their motivations, sometimes their background varies across them, to just, which is my whole thing with the story behind my stories, is that hopefully all that authenticity comes across in the books, because I did go there, I did experience that, I did have that, and I use that in my writing. So let me just find you the bit for the casino. So I'm going to mention this bit in the smoking. Goodwin had been in the casino later on most evenings before heading to bed. Smoky. That's the one thing he took away. It was pretty smoky in there, but despite that he just loved watching all the characters. He had a bet, just a little flutter, as did Jane, on the roulette wheel. That wasn't too complicated. Unlike the craps tables he'd studied for a bit and given up on, but he loved watching everybody else. Surprisingly, Cherry Blossom had been in there, who they dined with earlier. She was there on her own and not with Simon. Two young men, clearly a little worse for a few too many drinks, were throwing money down like it was an endless pool of cash, though their judgment impaired by their state meant the pool they were playing from was leaking faster than filling by a long way. There was some competition, it seemed, between them and a large bulky man with tattoos all up his arms to his neck. He was a high roller, watched by numerous bystanders as he stacked 10 or 15 chips together, placing 6 or 8 stacks across the felt, stacking on 4 corners, 4 sides, and all in on two particular numbers every spin. He didn't strike Goodwin as picking lucky or favourite numbers, as most of them played. He was a seasoned player and worked the wheel and the numbers, with his female cheer squad oohing and ahhing almost on every chip placed, and squealing with joy when a number came in, fawning over him. He paid little attention. His focus was solely on the play. That was most definitely not the description of the people, but that happening in the casino was very much my experience on the Canaries cruise. And there was one guy there who talked quite openly about he had the cruise for free because of the amount of money he spent in the casino every night. He'd done it on previous cruises where he'd spent a lot of money. They gave him a free cruise, but he effectively paid the same as the cruise, but he just got to gamble it in the casino and not pay for the cruise, whereas the rest of us paid for the cruise and didn't have to gamble in the casino. But it was those little nuances and my experience and people, I play this because that's my daughter's birthday, was a conversation that I had, not a lady I sat next to at the roulette wheel, and we were both putting it on the same number, and I said, it's my birthday, and she said, it's my daughter's birthday, and then we found that we both had something else in common, and that's how that leads on, and I utilise that in the book. But let me read you the bit about Cherry Blossom. Goodwin and Jane had walked through the casino on the first night after dinner, but had decided to pop in and actually have a little flutter on the second night, the night they had eaten with Cherry Blossom. Now, Cherry Blossom is Asian and the carer of one of the other characters that you'll read about when you read Aloha Goodbye. And it explains about her name in the book too. She was drunk, and the way she was greeted by the croupier on the roulette table and the pit boss, ironically an Italian man, Dominic, gave Goodwin the distinct impression this hadn't been her first evening in the casino. Not even the first time today, maybe. It was like watching a different person than they'd eaten with. The coy, gentle and quiet lady from the dining room was now playing roulette in a drunken, reckless, aggressive way. Desperation in her play and across her face, she had a routine to each spin. She'd be sitting there with a drink in front of her, something large and neat clinking over the ice in the glass, taking a long pull on the amber liquid before the ice had a chance to melt and dilute or cool the warmth of the spirit. She'd place her chips, same corners, lines and numbers each time, with the last few placed seemingly randomly across the layout. Another pull on her drink as the croupier waved her hand over the green felt with the numbers and every player's chips, saying, "No more bets, no more bets," then spun the wheel. While the wheel was spinning, another pull, and Cherry got a little more drunk, a little bit more desperate, and a little more down, no matter what the outcome. stark contrast to the tattooed player that shrugged off the losses and played again with a smile and a laugh. And she is partly based on 3 or 4 characters that I met in the casino on the few nights that we went in there. And all of my characters are based on characters that I met. No, none of them represent one single person, but it might be their name or the way in which they walked or something they said at dinner or the drink they drank. I take all of those experiences and combine them and come out with different characters that are bits of different people. And that is what makes Aloha Goodbye, where there is an interaction with so many different people all the time, so unique. And the story behind my story of cruising. So that's it for this episode. And next time I will continue telling you about the story behind Aloha Goodbye. Thanks for listening.